I have now started the recording, and I want to welcome our guests and our public who are interested in the subject of snow, fire, wind, and power outages happen. This is Sunday, March 14th, and I'm Madge Strong. I am the chair of Willits Economic Localization, which we just call WELL. We're the sponsors of this particular public forum. And we have John Haschak, our 3rd District Supervisor, who's going to be our moderator, and a number of guests who are going to be available to kind of explain what their role in the past and future emergencies are, and what their needs are. And then we're going to have some time for question and answer. So welcome. I'm going to take this contact list off of the screen so you can see each other and turn it over to John Haschak.
All right. Well, thanks, Madge. And thank you, everyone, for spending some time with us this afternoon. This is a beautiful, rainy spring Sunday afternoon. I appreciate you all being here. So this is the event, the Snow and Fire, Wind, and Power Outage event. You know, snow happens. We've certainly had our share of disasters lately, and we're going to hear today about steps to be taken and what we can all do to be better prepared for future disasters, which are unfortunately bound to happen. So I thank you again to Madge Strong and WELL for sponsoring this event. First of all, I'd like to really express my appreciation to the first responders to these events, the sheriff's office, the police departments, fire departments. You know, their efforts throughout these extreme conditions is really recognized and commendable when they're out risking their lives to save the lives of other people. That's you know, affects and touches all of our hearts. So thank you very much. I'd also like to thank the second responders, such as Caltrans, PG&E, the Department of Transportation. I had a meeting last week with Caltrans, and they were telling how the road crews during the January 26th, 27th snow event were out there late at night trying to keep the highway open north of Willits, Highway 101. And as the snow kept falling, their work became harder, and then the trees started falling, you know, to the north of them, to the south of them, and they ended up having to take refuge in a pullout where there weren't any trees around, and they spent the night there in their trucks and then got back to clearing the road first thing in the morning with the first light. So, you know, those kind of efforts are going on all around us in these kind of events. And certainly the Firewise Council for what you're doing to help prepare people for these kind of events and evacuations and everything. So we do have a great list of people here today. We have Sheriff Kendall. We have George Gonzalez, who's the chief for the Mendocino unit of CAL FIRE. We have Brent Blazer from the Office of Emergency Services. We have Chief Lizarraga, who is the Chief of Police of Willits, and Brian Bender, the city manager. From PG&E, we have Allison Talbot, and I don't know if Eric Haggerty is going to show up today, but he's also with PG&E. And then from the Firewise Councils, we have Scott Craddy, and who's the head of the Mendocino County Firewise Council. And then I think Keith Rutledge and Lauren Robertson and Eric Hart representing, well, Keith represents Sherwood Firewise Council, Lauren's from Pine Mountain, and Eric is from this one Firewise Council that's forming, that's in my area, southwest of Willits, extending down into Ridgewood and all the Williams Ranch Road, Schaefer Ranch Road, all those areas southwest of Willits. So that's a great effort being done. So we're going to look at today, again, what can be done to make things better for us in the dealing with these disasters as we come upon a new fire season, and we saw thousands of trees being knocked down, thousands of branches, and there being, what we can do to lower the risk and deal with the huge risk that we have for fire season in any kind of condition. So with that, we're going to go through our speakers, and Sheriff Kendall, I'd like for you to lead us off, and you have about 5 minutes to tell us what you've been doing. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Supervisor Haschak, and thanks for having me, folks. As we move into this coming fire season, we all have to be a little more prepared than what we have been in the past. And I think that we've got some good things in our rearview mirror. I'm a big proponent, a huge proponent of empowerment through education. And I think that when we look at what the fire safe councils have been doing throughout Mendocino County, we've seen some very big successes, and we will continue to see very big successes as long as we empower folks by educating them about the right direction to go, the right things to do. And currently, I think that Mendocino County is taking this extremely seriously. Our Board of Supervisors last year made funding decisions for the fire safe councils that served us extremely well, and they will continue to serve us, because education is not like a commodity or a good that can be given and used up and then it's gone. Education, you get it out there, people practice it, and it serves them for the rest of their lives. There's a lot of other things that we're looking at right now. We're looking at building out, hopefully, a dedicated emergency operations center so that we can stand things up much more rapidly. We can't control what Mother Nature throws at us, but what we can do is we control our responses to it. And by educating the community and working together hand in hand, all of a sudden that education becomes a force multiplier. And the more people who know how to react to different things that come up, the less people we have to be concerned with. The fire safe councils, one of the most important things that they have done is people now understand a lot more of fire behavior, fire weather, how to prevent it around your home and whatnot, but they're also reaching out and they're meeting their neighbors. And now we know the folks who have some mobility challenges. We know right off the bat who we're going to be working hard to be able to get them out of their home if there's a problem. And it's things like that that are going to get us moved ahead in the future. Also, we ran into some things in the evacuation of brook trails that we hadn't thought about. Everybody was educated. Everybody was doing the right thing. It was the smoothest evacuation I've ever seen in 31 years at the sheriff's office. But there were things that we hadn't thought about. We didn't think about COVID-19. And a lot of folks that would be going out and going for their walks in the evenings and stuff like that, they had been staying home. We had a lot more lift assists. We had a lot more things like that we just didn't see coming because we didn't realize the further reaching impacts of COVID-19. And now that we understand these things, we can give a little more time and a little more notice and get over to those places where we have some mobility challenged, folks and whatnot. And I think that as we progress through this, we're just going to get better at it as we go. Thank you.
And Sheriff Kendall, if I could just follow up that with a question, is that what do you think that, what could help you as a sheriff better combat these situations? What can the people do to help you?
Everyone who can participate in these fire safe councils, everyone who gets that information from them, everyone who participates and gets information and then begins doing the things around their home to keep their home safer and puts together that go bag, puts together that kit, that person who is ready. Tomorrow will not be a problem if you're ready for it yesterday. And, there's a lot of different things that the sheriff's office has been tasked with doing. During the 2017 fires, we had literally thousands of people calling concerned about their loved ones. make a plan if you have to evacuate to be able to reach out to your loved ones, let them know that you're okay, let them know where you're at, because getting through some of those calls was tough. And then we find out they haven't been able to get a hold of him because the phone lines are down, but he had also gone to Tacoma, Washington the week before. So stay connected with the family as well. And, you know, during that 2017 fire complex, I ran the coroner's team, and we had several people who had perished in the fire. But getting through the nitty gritty and finding out who was home and who was not home was our first step. And if everyone had reached out to their family, we would have known right off the get-go that there were houses that we didn't need to go to because people simply weren't there. They were with a friend or a loved one or someplace, and they hadn't reached out to the family members. And then the other thing is, I would encourage a lot of people to get on social media. We have got so many good ideas and good tips from CAL FIRE, from the police departments, from the sheriff's office. And they coincide with the seasons that are coming. When we come into fire season, we talk about fire safety. During the wintertime, we talk about floods and flooding and flood safety. Now, this last event with the snow, that was a real humdinger. It really was, because nobody saw that much snow coming that fast and didn't realize how much infrastructure damage there was going to be. However, we did realize that in the burn scar of the Oak Fire, we were going to lose a lot of trees. And so we put a lot of information out as soon as we get it. So please stay connected to social media, stay connected to the radio, and stay connected to your family during these times. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And next we're going to go to Chief George Gonzalez from the Mendocino unit of CAL FIRE.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. Sheriff Kendall was well on track with his statements, and a little bit of information on what we've been doing. Mendocino unit specifically has been working very proactively in VMPs, vegetation management programs, conducting control burns and strategic fire breaks throughout the county. Brook Trails is one of those areas where we have a couple of these measures in place, but we're putting them in place all over the county. As far as the dead and dying trees, or the trees that are down, there are swaths or areas of concern, from what it sounds like, in that Willits corridor up and through Brook Trails. A little bit of information on that and a little bit of background is, not that it'll put anybody's mind at ease that much more, but when the fuels are on the ground, it's actually a little bit easier and they're more accessible for fire crews to contain and control them versus when they're upright. So we actually have a little bit more fire suppression values if they're on the ground, which is a good thing. When they're vertical or upright, that's when you start to see the crowning fires. That's when you can't really get to them from the ground. It's only, our air assets. With regards to the evacuations, I agree with Sheriff Kendall. My 28 years in CAL FIRE and 31 years in the fire service, that evacuation was, for the lack of a better term, was absolutely perfect. Can we do it better? Sure, we'll never stop learning. We could always do it better. But there was no injuries, no fatalities. And that fire had all the abilities, all the Mother Nature threats, the humidity, the wind, the weather, had all the values going for it. It should have been a large and damaging fire. That should have gone 50, 60,000 acres, maybe 100,000, maybe 200,000 acres. But because of the training, the education, the disciplined crews, it was able to be maintained right around that 1,000 and 1,200 acre size. Ultimately, throughout the county, we have several more VMPs that we're working on. We're going to continue working on them. That's our mission for the Mendocino unit. During the downtime, if you will, which we used to get downtime, which we no longer really get, but during the wintertime is when we conduct a majority of our VMPs. And during the summertime is when we train and perfect our responses for wildland fires. Here in Mendocino County, we've taken every ounce of ability and experience we've learned over the past several years from these large and damaging fires, and we've implemented that. So we've increased our responses. What used to be technically 5 engines, 2 dozers, 2 hand crews, and aircraft now has 8 engines, more crews, more dozers assigned to it. And hopefully in and about June, we'll be receiving our new Firehawk, which essentially carries 1,000 gallons of water with it. It could do a vertical lift of 1 mile in about 30 seconds. Doubles the horsepower from our current helicopter, and it also doubles the crew carrying capability. So we're looking forward to having that. We're going to have additional firefighters for hand crews in the unit, and we are working with the California National Guard, and we're training with them, and we will have trained up National Guard response crews in the unit as well. And we're also working with CCC to establish additional hand crews for fire response for this summer. And to report unless there's any questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I know that there's interest in all that you do, and Chief Gonzalez is going to be reporting to the Board of Supervisors, giving us an update on April 6th about all of the specifics of what they're doing and where they're doing it. I know there's a lot of interest in the CAL FIRE grants. The Sherwood Firewise Council got almost $500,000 grant to do a lot of work along the Sherwood Road corridor and other areas. And there's interest in pursuing other grants with CAL FIRE. I know. Do you have anything to add to those, the grants that just opened up, Chief Gonzalez?
Thank you for bringing it up, Supervisor Haschak. You're absolutely correct. There is a lot of money through the grant system and through the budget change proposal at the state controllers and Department of Finance. CAL FIRE did receive additional monies to put out to the communities for the grant system. And it is all the information is available online for grants.
Yeah, I've been sharing that with the Firewise councils, and hopefully we'll have more applications in. Okay. So I'm going to go to Willits Police Chief Lizarraga. And so welcome.
Thank you. I would echo, Chief Sheriff Kendall's comments regarding preparation and people getting educated as to what needs to be done to protect themselves, their family members, neighbors, and then, be able to implement that plan when something like this happens. The biggest issue that we can work on as far as our role in this, I think, is we did have some communications issues, with our partners as far as being able to get accurate information. Our role in this last incident was controlling traffic going up into brook trails, and that caused a lot of angst amongst the community. People living in brook trails, people that lived in Willits, and not understanding why it was closed and those kinds of things. And it would have, I think our communication, to be quite honest, could have been a little bit better on our side, not only out to the community, whether it's through social media or some other means, but also within our own partners as far as what we can work on. And those are things that, we've initiated in order that we can have better communication, and not just among agency heads or agency, commanders and stuff, but the people on the ground, so that they can get a hold of whether it's CHP or sheriffs, but also with PG&E, CAL FIRE, people that are in the know of what's going on up the road there, and being able to relay that to not only our people but to some community members. So we give them a realistic measure of when it is that they can go back, or if it's going to be a while, whether it's going to be hours or days. It was kind of hard getting that source of information. So those are things that we can work on. But as far as the community, we would say the preparation is key. And the other thing is also that, when law enforcement, whether it's us, the sheriffs or highway patrol, shuts down an intersection or shuts down a highway, we're doing it because for the safety of the people that live up there, safety of people that want to travel up there, and really for the workers that need to deal with this, whether it's CAL FIRE or PG&E. And down power poles and down trees are a severe hazard to the community. So we ask for understanding of that these things that we do are necessary in order for that work to get done efficiently, quickly, so that we can hopefully get back to normal as soon as we can.
All right, thank you. And
Thank
so that's Chief Lizarraga from the city of Willits. So again, I'd like to say this is the Snow Happens event. It's sponsored by the Well, and Mayor Madge Strong from Willits is really putting this, doing the logistics for this. So welcome everyone. And I see a lot of Willits people, but I also see Pat Sobrero from Covelo online too. And Pat is a librarian up there and a great civic person, part of the CERT team. So let's go to Brent Blazer, Office of Emergency Services for the County of Mendocino.
Hey, thank you, Supervisor. And I think I'm outside, so I think the bird chirping was from my backyard, actually.
So they're real birds. Great.
Yeah, they're definitely real. Now it's raining a little bit, but I want to thank everybody. Thank you for having me here today and joining you guys, especially CAL FIRE, Chief Gonzalez, the sheriff, and of course the community and yourself. And I also want to really kind of always sing the praises. I mean, we all look to law and fire, but you nailed it. Department of Transportation, they're out there in the rain this time of year. It's not just the fires. They are kind of an unsung hero when it comes to any response. So just so you guys understand, my role, OES's role, we're not the front line by any means. We try to support the best we can to the CAL FIRE, to the operational folks that are out there doing stuff. And basically, we're just trying to bridge the gap between what they are doing and what their needs are, and explain that back to the executive staff to kind of help them build a strategic plan. So when the fire is out, what are we going to do about the public health concerns? What are we going to do to recover as fast as possible? What are the community needs? So I just kind of like to share that message and make sure people understand it. I don't wear a uniform like that. I don't want to get in the Chief Gonzalez's and Sheriff's lane by any means. Some of the things that, we did coming out of this winter weather storm is really kind of trying to gauge the assessment of what the damages were, because essentially the faster we come up with a damage assessment, the more likely and the ability to make a declaration or to try to get declarations. When you hear them say that from the county level, state is basically what opens up funding if we're going to qualify as an emergency or a disaster. In this case, it really wasn't looking like those metrics were going to be met. But one of the things we want to try to improve on going forward is a little bit better of processing of how do we collect that damage assessment so that we can paint the picture for the state and or federal. And that's in any situation. So we'll be looking at that, but really we moved quickly into trying to find some volunteer opportunities and what programs are out there, because until they start making assessments, those grant opportunities don't come up. And this debris from trees and such is a very long process. DOT will take months to clean it out of the right of ways to the roads. But we're looking to try to, find any resources for the Firewise groups, like putting them in touch with I forgot the name of the group already. Team Rubicon and stuff like that. Any groups that come to the table that want to offer some assistance, then it's kind of like the community's job to kind of build a plan of how they're going to attack it. Because the big problem with volunteers is they can't really use chainsaws, stuff like that. The state's not going to insure it. But I've had conversations with state volunteer coordination groups, and some of the limiting factors, just so everybody understands, volunteers have been, last whole year has been nothing but a disaster. Volunteer groups and public health aspects are being used for pandemic, for inoculations and everything else. So the resources are just kind of a little bit spread thin right now. Moving forward, of course, I want to hear all the community's concerns from different areas so that we make sure that we're not consuming grants multiple ways on the same projects, and that we're making sure we're pointing people in the right direction. So thank you, Chief Gonzalez, for kind of pointing us sort of Firewise and the CAL FIRE type grants. Moving forward, or what we've been doing kind of since then, I'd like to point out that Willits has been working on, and I've been kind of coordinating with them on their updating their evacuation plan for the city. And we at the county have been working diligently to kind of build out zones for evacuation zones and such, and kind of have more pre-planned type of response efforts. And Chief Gonzalez nailed it. And I, we don't own that. They did a fantastic job working together between fire and law and the public themselves and the alert and warning aspects. But there is always room for improvement. How do we make it better, right? So one of the big things is we've been building out maps. We're actually going into a contract right now. They're going to be working with an internet provider, web designer to help build an OES web page that's more dynamic, that can be integrated with alert and warning, and that we can host and post all those evacuation areas online, and then also educate the public on what those zones look like. So that just enhances the communication between everybody and make sure we're all on the same page. So that's a big lift that we're going to have in the next couple of months. Recommendation-wise, the chief from Willits, Sheriff Kendall nailed it. Preparation and having a public that's is ready to go, that is always constantly kind of realizing, hey, we're in fire season, and I should, kind of tune in a little bit more, right? Or when it's rainy, they kind of aware of the threats. I would encourage that, if you have new community members that didn't live here before, didn't grow up here, maybe they've relocated, that you bring them up to speed, right? Because the people who are entrenched and they know it and they've been living it for years and years, they're not the ones who usually have as much of a struggle. So you want to help your neighbors. And one of the biggest things I would encourage, because it's heartbreaking on my end to see, is, if you're a homeowner, business owner, and you're in a fire-prone area and such, please look over your insurance policies. Those are changing big time these last couple of years. Make sure you're aware of what your liabilities are and your coverage, and how much, if you did lose your home, how long they're going to help you with a long-term rental or whatever it might be. It's beyond, by all means, know your go bag, know that stuff, but be ready in those areas so that you're not without and that you're properly covered for your family's needs. I'm gonna stop there for now, Supervisor, unless you have any questions. But thank you for having me today.
Okay, thank you, Brent, for being here. Brent Blazer, who's Director of the Office of Emergency Services for the County of Mendocino. If you have any questions, you can certainly put them in the chat box, and Madge will kind of group them, or give them to us after the presentations that will probably end in about 10-15 minutes. So yeah, feel free to write into the chat box right at the bottom of the screen in the middle if you have any questions. Okay, and so we're going to go to PG&E, and we have the regional liaison for governmental relations, Allison Talbot, and Eric Haggerty, who's the local or person in charge of the vegetation management, I guess. Right. So welcome, Allison.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. It means a lot to be included in an important discussion like this. And thank you to Mayor Strong too. We really are grateful. I'm going to entirely turn it over to my colleague, Eric Haggerty. He does run our vegetation management program for the entire North Coast and is your neighbor in Mendocino County. I'm up in Eureka. I'm here if there are any questions I can help with though. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Allison. Appreciate it. John, thanks for having us. So just to touch on a couple things that we're working on. So most recently, we know we were damaged with a pretty significant snowstorm for our area. We're still working on cleaning up. We're still finding trees that suffered some aspect of damage during that particular storm, and we're still working on it. I think for all of our general public, what's really important is if you guys see something, call in to our PG&E that 1-800 PG&E 5000. Ask for the vegetation management department and say you have a vegetation concern. We can get someone out to that location generally within around 24 to 48 hours to take a look at what you may be concerned about. That helps us and helps us identify potential issues in the field. And when in doubt, just make the phone call. We'll come and take a look and make sure everything is safe and as it should be.
Can you
in
give us that
relation
number
to
again? Eric, can you give us that number
1-800
again?
Yeah, 1-800-PG&E 5000. And my email was included on the agenda there. So if you do not feel compelled to go through the 5000 number, which does take a little bit of time, feel free to shoot me an email and I can get that to the appropriate my local program managers that cover the different programs that we have and have someone get out there and take a look. Fire season, we are actively gearing up for our fire season. We've started our enhanced vegetation management in a portion of brook trails. We'll be working kind of between brook trails up towards the gates and into Laytonville. And we'll also be working, heading out around the city of Ukiah and heading out towards the Boonville area this year is the locations that are on our schedule. Scott Crowdy with the Mendocino County Fire Safety has my regional schedule I provided to him maybe like a month ago, and we haven't seen any significant changes there, and that includes both our routine operations as well as our enhanced vegetation management. So I'll kind of give you a picture of where we're going to be and when. So we're actively out in force. So you're going to be seeing a lot of folks out and about in the community, marking trees, knocking on doors, and talking to customers. The best way that our community can support some of this enhanced vegetation and fire-specific work is being understanding. It is kind of an aesthetic. Removing any amount of large vegetation can be aesthetically maybe different or have kind of a Band-Aid effect. So bearing with us, talking to residents in other parts of the community that have already seen this work come through and seen the benefit, talking to other folks within the community and saying, hey, this turned out really great. We had a good product. We're able to, get a lot of the debris cleaned up. We have a little bit larger scope of work with our enhanced vegetation management than our routine vegetation management and removing some of the larger debris that's accessible. So if we do remove whole trees on EVM, we have the ability in some situations to take all of the debris from the property and dispose of it. So those are the couple things that we've got going on outside of our routine. And I think Chief Gonzalez and Chief Lizarraga both said it really well in terms of being prepared. I think that's something that we think about all the time in PG&E is being prepared for anything that could possibly happen during fire season, having all of your important documents in one place, easily accessible, ready to go, having a bag with a week's worth of clothing in it that you can easily get in your vehicle and take off if you need to. I know I live in the Brook Trails community, was part of the evacuation, and luckily our internal training definitely rubbed off on me, and we were able to get all of our stuff ready in about 10 minutes. And I had the family and the animals in the car, and we were headed out of the neighborhood, and it wasn't something we were willing to to wait on. So when we do have evacuations, the best thing you can do is be ready and then leave, because being an individual homeowner and staying home is not going to be helpful in the long run, because you don't have the tools or equipment to be able to fight fire or defend your home and structure. And so your best bet is to leave. Likewise, if you see down power lines, just like we were out during the winter storm and there was some excessive damage and lines down on the road and broken poles and hanging trees and a lot of precarious situations. And the important thing, even though your power is out at home, those lines have the potential to be energized. And the reason being is because there's a variety of ways that people hook their independent generation to their home, and does have potential to backfeed into the lines if it's not done correctly. And it creates a big safety risk for not only our employees out in the field, but the general public. So assuming those lines are energized, don't touch them, don't push them out of the way, just leave them and wait for one of our crews to come and take care of them and let you know that it is safe to proceed or get those out of the way for you.
All right. Well, thank you,
that's-
Eric.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
And I think that there might be some questions about public safety power shutoffs afterwards, but we'll keep moving on and come back to you at that point. Okay. So thank you
Absolutely.
for being here,
Thanks.
and Allison. Thank you too. Let's go to Brian Bender, who is the new city manager for Willits. So Brian, I just wanted to welcome you to this conversation. If you had any quick remarks.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to address the community and appointed and elected officials on this forum. One of the things we did learn during that recent snow event is here within the city is a good number of our staff reside up in Brook Trails. And that became a difficult issue for us to continue providing services and responding to the community when we realized the good portion of the community is, they were unable to leave Brook Trails to get to their places of work here, either at City Hall or at one of the facilities. So we identified that as a concern for future events. One of the things, the city has to do in all types of weather and conditions is to provide central services, both law enforcement as well as utility services, water and sewer. We need to keep providing those at a consistent basis for the community. So that's something we're looking to address and get a better handle on in the future as well. We also recognize, as Chief Lizaraga noted, that we probably need to work on some of our communication with other agencies as well. And these are the things that only get identified as you experience an event and you're learning your lessons from. So these are good things. And, what I like to throw out there to the community, to this group right here, is maybe we have a follow-up session and look at local emergency planning actions. And so we can address these issues and items and build some resiliency into our network.
Well, thank you. And how many months have you been here, Brian?
Coming up on 3.
Yeah, and so you've already had your first emergency to deal with. So anyway.
Keeps everything exciting.
Well, welcome. And now we're going to go to Scott Craddy, who's the director of the Mendocino County Firewise Councils. Is that the title?
Mendocino County Fire Safe Council.
Yeah. Okay. And he's a coordinator for all the fire safe councils in the county, and kind of looking at the global countywide perspective of how to keep us fire safe.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it, John. And so, the topic I had was, what are we doing in response to this situation? And I kind of always frame those things on 2 levels. One, when there's something that comes up, you can try to find a big pot of money and pay someone with a lot of machines to come help you. And we're doing a little bit of that. The Mendocino County Fire Safe Council is, we do not have large pots of money sitting around. The county is generously helping us with our base funding for this year and last year, which has been amazing. But most of our funding is money that's specific to grants that we've obtained, and that money is committed to a particular thing. But with this event, we've done what we can to rearrange that funding and to bring it to bear as much as possible. So we have currently, had some funding this year that did road clearing in Birch and Poppy and Primrose and Lilac and up on Williams Ranch Road. And what's left of that, we've brought to crews that we have that were being directed by the local fire safe councils in those areas to help do road clearing where it's most important. We had crews out, I think 6 or 7 days in the last 2 weeks, and we'll be back out there on Monday, helping clear some of the road, or clear some of the debris from the sides of the roads and reduce the fire fuel in people's ingress and egress paths. We have also applied, we have a larger grant that's called the Ukiah Valley Fire Fuel Reduction Grant. And we have reconfigured, we've proposed to revise the use of the funding that's left in that to hopefully free up a lot of it to help with some of the storm damage. And that's a grant that's from CAL FIRE through the county. And the county has approved that. We're expecting to hear from CAL FIRE in the next week. And hopefully that'll enable us to bring a number of more chipper days and road clearing work to help dig out of the storm. So we've done those two things with the larger grant money. The other way to get a lot done is to have a lot of people do a little bit. And we do that through connections with county or with local and neighborhood fire safe councils like Sherwood Firewise, which is an amazing group. One of the models for the country on how to put together a neighborhood fire safe council. So, if you aren't, the thing to do is to be connected with your neighborhood fire safe council. If there's not one in your area, then you can form one. Anybody who's interested in fire safety in their neighborhoods, I'd advise you to spend a little time browsing our website. It's firesafemendocino.org. You will see on there's a section on preparing your neighborhood, and there's a map there that has all of the existing fire safe councils that cover neighborhoods, so you can see where there's one that you can join and where there are places that don't have one that are waiting for you to create it. You'll see a lot of other things. Eric mentioned that he coordinated with us on where PG&E is working. So if you look under community resources, you'll see the PG&E 2021 Mendocino schedule. So you can get an alert about where PG&E is going to be when, and we can help you point out things to them that might need attention ahead of that and help funnel them to Eric. There's a section on safeguarding your home, which is a great place to spend a lot of time. Wildfires tend to, the ones that have done the most damage in recent years are wind driven. They're kind of erratic. There's only so much road clearing you can do, but you can radically increase the chance that your home and your neighborhood will survive by doing the basic steps to get home hardening done and to get defensible space around your home. The other things we are doing as a county fire safe council are trying to bring tools to help community groups do more clearing work. We have one chipper already that's out there doing work. We have, it is available to neighborhood fire safe councils at about half off of what you can get a commercial chipper for. We're expecting a second chipper to be delivered probably next week. That's going to live at the Redwood Valley Fire Station. So we're bringing more resources to bear. We have a crew from the Hopland Band of Pomos that we've trained that's out there doing the work in Brook Trails the last couple of weeks. And that crew is available. Also, it's a 4-person crew that's available for about half the price of what you're going to get for any commercial work for the same kind of level. And we've worked with them to train them to do defensible space clearing, to do roadside clearing, and of course to run the chippers. So we're trying to bring resources. We landed a grant last week for a mobile unit that's going to be equipped with about $10,000 worth of equipment that you can help run your own neighborhood clearing projects. And we offer one-day insurance for neighborhood groups for liability. So you can do your neighborhood cleanup projects with an easier mind. So those are the kinds of things we're doing. We're trying to amass resources that you can do to do the work, to make the work happen in your own neighborhoods when we can't find money to bring in crews from the outside to do it for you. And the other thing I want to mention, and thanks to Brent Blazer for making this connection, we're also working with the local neighborhood fire safe councils to get Team Rubicon up here, a veterans group that can bring a mass of volunteers from the Bay Area up. And just today, we actually arranged for a Team Rubicon reconnaissance person to come up here on Tuesday, who's going to be looking around and scouting to try to find places to bring their crew up to help with some of the cleanup. And that's good enough for me. Thank you for the time.
Well, thanks, Scott. And if you need an area to go to for the Team Rubicon reconnaissance, that we certainly have ideas.
Yeah, they're connecting Sherwood Firewise and Pine Mountain. Both are already set up to give them a little bit of a tour. So.
Excellent. All right. And speaking of that, we're just going to go briefly through some of the Firewise Council groups. that I know that they're for particular areas, but I wanted people to know who we're dealing with. So Lauren Robertson.
Yeah, I am here.
Hi, Lauren. So did you want to just say, what area you represent and how people can get in touch with you for your Firewise council?
We're a Firewise community up in Pine Mountain, which is on the south east corner of Willits, extending to above Redwood Valley. And we're also a fire safe council, so Firewise and Fire Safe are separate entities. I think there's only 3 or 4 Firewise councils in the county at this point. Firewise is part of the National Fire Protection Association, and it takes a little bit more planning and a different application to become a Firewise neighborhood. So just to clarify that. Right now, we're using this situation with the snowstorm to really talk to a lot of people about what we feel our focus should be. And I think to bring it back to focus on defensible space, defensible roads, defensible driveways, and for people to focus on those areas. So we're doing chipping on Wednesday and Thursday. We've got 32 participants, and we're telling them clear the first 5 feet around your house, absolutely, then the 30 feet and then the 100 feet. And we're also telling them the same thing which Chief Gonzalez mentioned, which is a tree down in the forest that has the limbs cut off and burned is not a fire hazard. Or it's not a fire hazard certainly this year. So we're trying to get people to not worry too much about stuff that's 100 feet from their house. But people are worried. So we're emphasizing defensible space, home hardening, emphasizing that 85% of houses burn down because of embers. So to think like an ember, concentrate on ember, preventing ember intrusion into your house. We also always are talking about defensible roads and defensible poles. So everybody I talk to, I tell them take out their weed eater and weed eat around the pole. Electric pole, telephone pole, we don't care. So they don't fall down when there's a fire. So they don't burn off at the bottom and block our roads. We're one way in, one way out neighborhood. So that's really important. We also are emphasizing address signs and street signs and signing up for nixles. So taking this snow disaster from panic and overwhelm and I don't know what to do down to what's the mission of our Firewise, fire safe community, defensible space, home hardening, especially the first 5 feet around the house and the first 100 feet. So that's what we're doing. And then we're planning our Firewise event for May. Firewise communities have to do an event every year. And we don't know what that's going to be yet. And I volunteered to take the Team Rubicon person around on Tuesday. I don't know anything more about that, how that's going to go. And we're hoping for another PG&E grant to do roadside thinning to clean up what happened after the storm. 2 years ago, we got a $37,200 grant from PG&E to clear in 6 areas in the Pine Mountain neighborhood that had to be within 1,000 feet of the lines. So
Lauren, it certainly sounds like you're taking the disaster that we had and making proactive action. Thanks. And we'll move on to Keith Rutledge.
Okay, how about that? And
Keith,
can everybody see the screen?
2 minutes. Yeah.
That's working. Okay, thank you. Keith Rutledge with Sherwood Firewise. And we're doing, everybody, I want to tell you, first of all, I'm really honored to be here today with this group. It's an amazing group of people. So thank you, everyone, for doing what you're doing. It's all of us together is what makes this happen. Anyway, I'll just focus on our near-term activity after the snowstorm. We are taking people's addresses with information looking specifically at what we just talked about, the 100-foot defensible space around your home, access, your driveway, the road to your house. Those are the things we're focusing on. We know that there are, as the Chief Neuer from Brook Trails put it, thousands and thousands of trees are down, and so it's not just that there's a few trees. There's a lot of limbs, a lot of hanging trees, a lot of things over people's homes. It's voluminous. So Brent mentioned it earlier about damage assessment. We're trying to figure out what's the best way. If we could just fly around at the bird's eye view and really get a good cruise of how much damage is there, because we're really seeing it mostly from the streets and from people's homes, and not so much deeper into the woods. So it's a very big issue. Anyway, we are collecting these names for Team Rubicon so they can sort of get a picture of where to go, and so you can see here there's the Pine Mountain area that Lauren was speaking about. In the lower right-hand corner, obviously lots of brook trails, but there are others in Schaefer Ranch, Walker Ranch, other places. And this is just anecdotal starting off. I'm sure there's 8 times as much out there if we really got people to pitch in. So we're thinking that there's this fire season, clear around your home, identify bigger issues where you might have to get in and actually remove logs eventually if you want to take trees out and have to cut them into firewood size or somehow get them out. It's a much bigger, longer-term picture. And the green belt in brook trails in particular, we have a special situation with brook trails having a 2,500-acre green belt that's interspersed amongst the 1,500 homes and the 4,500 vacant lots. And so we're particularly challenged with having 1,500 homes can clear around their home, but if they're backing up to the greenbelt and they're adjacent vacant lots on either side, they can still have quite a bit of vegetation that needs to be dealt with. So that's another long-term issue that we're having some success with through chipper days that the Mendocino County Fire Safe Council and Scott Craddy have been so generous with, and we're going to do more of that. Also roadside fuel reduction work, and then the CAL FIRE project coming up. But this is a really different level of clearing around homes where we really, in brook trails in particular, but also in the other communities, need to get more help coming in. And so Team Rubicon is one step. I think we need to apply for some pretty big disaster recovery grant kind of funds to be able to help, especially people that are either lower income or not able to take care of this themselves. And I'll stop there so we can, in the interest of time. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks, Keith. And if anyone's interested who lives up in the Sherwood Road corridor, Brook Trails area, the gates, anywhere in that area, the Sherwood Firewise certainly has a presence on Facebook and lots of different areas.
Yep, and the slide that's up right now has that Sherwood Firewise info at sherwoodfirewise.org, but I'll put it in the chat box too. Thank you.
The last Firewise group we're going to go to is Eric Hart. Maybe not. I don't see him. But Eric is forming the group from Ridgewood and through Schaefer Ranch Road and Walker Road. So all of those areas he's trying to combine into a Firewise community. So it's a great task. And he's making progress on it. So we're going to go... Really, I thank you again, everyone, for participating in this. And thank you to Mad Strong and Well for organizing this event today. So this is a well event, but I think we're getting some great information. Really, I appreciate all of your time this afternoon. And I'll go to Madge and see if you have any questions.
Okay, there was one question that got answered in the chat, but it was a little long for me to try to read that and still pay attention to what was going on with our speakers. So it was about the Office of Emergency Services doing educational outreach, and I'm pretty sure Brent Blazer already, maybe he could spend another 1 minute or so just to summarize that. And he also answered another question that had to do with, is there a local contact when an emergency is happening to report that A, you're safe, or B, you don't know where your child is, or whatever. So if you are available there, Brent Blazer.
So yeah, we do education outreach in a slew of different ways. I know it's maybe Usually our office is one, maybe two people, so we don't really do so much individual people in the public, right? I try to work through groups and then let them proliferate that information out. So it's just a few of the educational outreach programs we were doing. Last year, we were doing the Lease Do program, coordinating through nonprofits and the state and such. So they're actually calling individuals. And the top 3 priorities I put out there was making sure they were enrolled in the alert and warning system, that they were individually prepared, and that they had, what was the other one? I forgot. I apologize. Top of my head, I forget, but I gave them 3 priorities when they were doing the outreach, and they were essentially doing 400 to 500 phone calls a day, a week. And we were getting a report out that I was giving to the supervisors and such. So that went on for a number of months. We'll be working and going through the schools and doing elementary education. We find that by educating the children, they take that information home and they actually educate their parents. It's very successful. So we've kind of been working with the state and also local nonprofits to help proliferate that information. We, of course, this month we'll be doing some things with tsunami and targeting the coastal communities. So a lot of times what I'm doing is not just looking at the threats, but the areas of the county, and then tailoring some type of education or training to those areas. And of course, as we move into May, we'll be kind of thinking more. We already are going to be doing an alert and warning exercise and such. So practicing our capabilities and then also educating the public in those areas that have a higher fire vulnerability and such. So that's always a big aspect of what we do, and is a constant movement. It's just something that people probably don't see as much of. Also with that new website and such that we're going to be building out, I want to make sure that we have a lot of products on there and that we can advertise so the public can go there, download and pull, and have more of a collected library of information. So that's a big piece of what we're building right now. So that's on the education. When it comes to registration or kind of figuring out how to get in touch with missing family members and such during an emergency, Sheriff Kendall nailed it during an operation. When the emergency operation opens up, part of that is a call center in which the public can call in and get information or provide information on missing or anything like that. It also kind of happens at shelters as they open. We have a notification process there. And so we do a clearinghouse, and that all that information gets kind of pushed over to the law enforcement branch as well. We can consider it. And then they kind of try to marry up missing information with information that comes in or tracking down those that are needing to be notified of particular, whatever the situation might be. So that's kind of how we do that. It does take a little bit of time, as you can imagine, because there's so many people that start calling in with concerns of missing family members and or family, whatever it might be. So we have to, go out and marry that information up. So that's one aspect. And then also, I think part of that question was being up to date on evacuation notices. So we do have the Nixle and different places we put information, but again, that new platform we're building out is going to have links so that the public can always kind of refer back and kind of understand, hopefully, a better picture of where evacuations are happening. And just like the road closure map for DOT, another resource for the public to look at. And so they can either call in, they can go online, they can see it on Facebook, whatever it might be. We're just trying to get it as accessible as possible to all of our residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Madge, do you have another question?
Yeah, I think so. And I noticed that there are at least one person who wants to ask a question directly. One person on the chat asked about how to communicate with people on the outer edges beyond brook trails, primarily up in the various third gate, et cetera, so they know which way to go when they're told to evacuate. And I'm hoping that there are robocalls, some way to do that. Who has the answer to that?
I could probably do that for you. So, Madge, what we've done in the past is not only do we put it out with the Nixle, the Everbridge, the reverse 911, but we also send deputies and members of DOT, Department of Transportation. We're trying to get far enough ahead of these evacuations that we can get signage up and we can have deputies pointing in the correct direction for people to go. Now, a road like Sherwood, where you can go north out to the 101 or south down to Main Street, We're never going to put information out preemptively, like if there's a fire in this area, you need to go here, because the fire weather will change, the wind direction will change, and Chief Gonzalez could speak to that much better than what I could. But what we do is immediately we get the information as fast as we can, and then we get the deputies out there, we get signage out there, we get all of those platforms with reverse 911 and Nixle and things like that. And we start putting it out the direction for people to travel based on where they're at when they're leaving.
Did you want to add something to that, Brent?
Yeah, I mean, Sheriff nailed it. The other tool, as we have prolonged closures or whatever it might be, I'd always recommend that the community watches the DOT Quick Maps site, because they're consolidating different road closures on that map also. And then our new, what we did last year is actually that Google map that we were pushing had any hard and soft road closures were on there also. So we tried to update that in with the alert and warnings products that we push out.
I have a list of 2 so far. John Lemmer and then John Almeida both want to ask a question. If you can direct it to a particular one of our resource people, or if it's general, go ahead. John Lemmer.
There was a question asked, how can you tell your friends and family that you're safe when you can't otherwise communicate? The Red Cross has a Safe and Well website, which anybody can access. You register where you are, what you're going to do, and list your contact information. It's available really to anybody. We had a problem in the shelter at the 2017 fire, and that I was at the Willits shelter with the Red Cross. We had no internet, we had no phone, we had nothing. So people wanted to register, we couldn't. We had no access to it. But if you have access to the internet, it's Red Cross Safe and Well. And there's a way to put your name and where you are and how to contact you.
John Almeida.
My comment and question is both to PG&E and Supervisor Haschak. As you remember back in the last fires that we had the big power safety shutdown, I guess it was 2017, but we were shut down for approximately half a week and we're going to be turned back on, and then went right into another PSPS event and we were down over a week. During that time, city services, this city services all of the District 3, because people come here from Laytonville and Covelo to get services. We're the only hospital in this district. Not only were they stressed with their backup generation system, or where they had to go out and rent another generator, we didn't have but one gas station, and thank God that they had their own generator. We didn't have pharmacies. We didn't have hardly anything for services. In fact, when I went and got gas, I was behind this person, and we were all starting engines and moving ahead and then shutting them off. It was backed way down Bechtel. This old pickup that was in front of me, finally, from shutting on and off all the time, the transmission line broke and they lost like about 10 to 14 quarts going right down the storm drain. So I believe it's really important. And I've talked to Supervisor Haschak, and in fact, last August when PG&E was at the Board of Supervisors meeting, I addressed them too. I had brought up before the City Council and before John Haschak, prior to these microgrids, about semi-truck generators that are available. Well, PG&E decided to go ahead and do that. So they have identified 10 areas in the county where they can energize tier 1 areas. That means when you're shutting down tier 2 and tier 3 and we can't get power to tier 1 from the outside, we can have our own generation areas to take care of the needs of the community. And there's lots of needs. So in any case, I addressed this because I had went to Fort Bragg and seen they had 12 of these generators over there in their substation ready to go. When I addressed the gentleman from PG&E, he said that the generators for Willits would be stored in the Ukiah yard, which is North Ukiah, and be able to be brought up here ahead of a PSPS. Well, here comes, I think it was around November of this last year, 2020, and we're going to have a PSPS event, and they're telling us when it's going to happen. And I'm going out there monitoring the substation, and there's no generators being brought in here. And
let's make sure we get an answer for you, John.
Well, let me finish my comment so we can get a full answer. So in any case, there's no generators brought up here. And I finally called Supervisor Haschak. I'm saying, we're 2 hours from this PSPS event and these generators are supposed to be promised to us, have not been set up here. So the thing is, these generators aren't going to be set up in half an hour, not from what I've seen in Fort Bragg. They got big cables and there's a lot of work to be done to have these set up. And with this $20 million grant that PG&E has given to the county of Mendocino, if it was split 5 ways to each district, we could use some of that money maybe to help PG&E to make sure we put these here and have them ready. Because when we don't have services, people coming out of the hills and coming from other cities, we don't have services. Not only does that make it tough, it makes it dangerous, but the fire department's also talked about how dangerous it is where people are setting up their own generation systems. We lost one house out here to a fire during that PSPS event. And the fire department is worried about people setting up their own generators and causing fires. And I know PG&E is worried about it too. So I want to see these portable generators on semi-trailers put at this Willits substation, because they're saying they're doing it. I just got an email, I'm on their list, that they're going to do this, and that now all 10 of these microgrids are set up. And I'm going, what? That was in an email to me when I looked on their site.
John, you're taking up a lot of time with a question.
Right.
I'd like to hear from the people that might be able to address the concern you're raising. It's a very legitimate concern, but we have time limits. So
yeah, I'm
perhaps
almost there. I'm almost there. Let's get this done, because we need to provide at least the pharmacies, the grocery stores, 3 gas stations, a hospital, and the people have to pump water from electricity, that we're out of water when there's no electricity. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. So let's see, Allison or Eric from PG&E, did you hear that about the trailer generators? And is that a possibility for the Willits power station?
Well, John, I'm not going to claim to be an expert on this. I'm sorry, Supervisor Haschak as well as Mr. Almeida. However, I can say that we did prepare the Willits substation to be able to accept a generator. The most recent time that we were concerned that a PSPS might occur, the substation was within a high fire threat district, and a generator would not have been of use in that particular instance. I certainly am not going to comment on the PG&E settlement to Mendocino County from the 2017 fires, but I do want to assure you that the substation is prepared to accept a generator. They've done the work on that, our crews and substation maintenance folks. I can't make a strong definitive statement about getting a generator there in advance.
Yeah, it's a concern that I have too. And I know that I think Brian may have been the one that wrote fairly recently. It might have been the previous city manager inquired and was told that somehow the station itself wasn't suitable for the hookup. And I don't know why that would be, but if there's...
Well, it's not that it wasn't suitable for the hookup, just that the weather, the high fire threat encompassed the area where the substation is. So we couldn't generate it during a wind event.
Okay, I got this third hand, so I'm getting a little bit more of an answer. I would like us to, Willits, to keep talking to PG&E about what we can do about that, because we are the site that everybody from the hills can come to in the event of an emergency as an evacuation center, and our own residents as well, to have basic services and things like the hospital and the gas stations and the stores. So let's pursue that, and I would like to hear more about it.
If I could make a quick comment, I mean, hospitals have a requirement to have, I think, 96 hours of generator backup. So we should recognize that. And I think one of the things, we don't want to harp on it, but we kind of want to maybe encourage businesses. I know a lot of gas stations, we polled at the beginning of a couple years ago, and then we did a polling going into PSPS this year. So a lot of gas stations and such are starting to look at generator backup, but of course those are big business expenses. But we got to continue to encourage the business community to be more resilient. because it's not to just put it on PG&E, because you nailed it. When the power was out, even if we put a generator up, if they would have put one up, because of the fire conditions, they can't even, you can't generate. The point is to de-energize the lines. So we kind of have to really look at it from a couple different angles, is all I'm trying to say. But thank you.
And I think what John Almeida was talking about too was there is a settlement, if people don't know yet, for the county from PG&E regarding the 2017 fires. And the county will be receiving $22.6 million. And so certainly my focus is going to be on public safety, whether it's fire safety, law enforcement, or anything else we can do. John Almeida's comment about, maybe these trailers, to provide backup generation, energy generation might be a thing that we could do with that money too. So we're looking at, we just got approached with that, or started talking about it at the board level last week. And I'm sure these conversations will go on for several months before we determine how the money will really be spent. But those are going to be my focus.
So I'd also just like to say that we're a little bit past, about 4:20 now. And in case there were people out there that didn't notice the time change that happened last night and joined us since we started, we are recording this, and it will be available on Vimeo through Channel 3, probably within a few days. So I will have that information available to people that may have missed something and want to get that information. And I am now on, for myself anyway, on gallery view. And if anybody wishes to speak, if you have a video, you can raise your hand. If you don't, if you're on phone or whatever, please take a moment, unmute yourself, and one at a time we can hear questions. So anybody out there?
Yeah, Rick Williams.
Well, I have a question for PG&E. The most recent snow we got, when we got 1 inch about a week ago, our residents in Brook Trails lost power 3 different times for a total of about out of power maybe 10 hours in the 24-hour period after it started snowing. So Eric and Allison, have the recent events and the recent storms, do we need to prepare ourselves for the fact that the PG&E system is going to be apparently a lot more fragile? Because that had never happened before in my recollection in Brook Trails, and we've been up here since 2004. And I was just pretty shocked when we lost power 3 times. Is PG&E's system going to be more fragile? Do we need to know that in terms of being educated at Brook Trails and at Willits and in Laytonville, for that matter, as to what it might be like in the fire season this year?
Thanks, Mr. Williams. This is Allison. Eric, please jump in if you'd prefer. I believe, though I cannot say with certainty, that the January storms, the damage that was created then, there were a lot of weakened limbs, a lot of dead limbs that are still laying in trees. And I would like to convey that perhaps for the rest of this winter season, it might be a good idea to be, well, you should always be resilient and prepared for an outage. However, I think those branches are going to be coming down for a little while. I am not an arborist. I'm wishing Eric would pop in with some advice on that count. Let me just see if he's still on the line.
Yeah, Allison, I can jump in, specific to the vegetation. So, trees like humans are generally conditioned to withstand their normal forces, we'll say. When we get an event that is, say, a 20 or 30-year storm or is uncommon to an area, we do see trees act accordingly and have a little bit higher occurrence of failure in those situations. As such, and as I previously mentioned, we are still dealing with trees that were weakened initially by the heavy storm towards the end of January. And we've seen some trees with some of the lighter weather we've had still pose a little bit of an issue based on the previous stressors that they had. That's not necessarily an indication that the system per se is weaker. I think we need to look at it as a little bit more broad stroke, is that, you know, our trees and vegetation in the area went through a pretty significant storm. We're still, and by nature, they're still flushing out where a little bit of damage was done, and now you're seeing additional damage. As Allison mentioned, you know, there are situations where limbs may partially break. It's not very visible from the ground, and then we get additional snow loading that causes the limb to totally fail. So what we are doing, we have been out and doing post-storm patrolling. We've taken a lot of feedback from customers that have seen things, and we are out and looking and mitigating hazards as we identify them, as it resulted from the previous storm. We will continue to be working through the brook trails area on our routine and our dead tree patrols. Those are both identified to look at regulatory hazards to our facilities, and as well as the enhanced vegetation management program, which is more towards the airport and moving up towards the gates. But we are out there and looking in force. You know, dealing with a dynamic and living organism poses unique challenges that you know, we are definitely working through and trying to address. But I do agree with Allison that you know, being prepared for a couple days of being out of power, understanding where we live, is just a good idea. You know, I am generally affected similar to everyone else in the community when the power's out. I don't get none of us here at PG&E get any special treatment. We're in it together, just with the communities that we serve as well.
The only thing I have a hard time with is during these fires and such things, we actually have in our town community centers that become shelters for people. For them not to have, I don't understand why PG&E can't be part of taking care of that, since it is part of our system as well as our town struggling with it. Having power to the shelters as well as some of these basic services. If it's safe enough to have people sheltered there, I would think it's safe enough for PG&E to have their system. And if it needs, I mean, it may be that they need to just have certain areas, have it so that they can set off wiring just certain small areas of the town, but it seems like that should be doable.
Thanks for that comment. We are looking at a lot of different ways that we can support the community. I don't want to sound like I'm not taking it seriously, but we're getting better at this. And we've worked with, for example, with the city of Willits to establish a community resource center at the city hall or next at the community center. And we have also, we're partnering with the Center for Independent Living Center for Independent Living to ensure that customers who have medical devices can get batteries that can keep their devices charged. We're looking at supporting a number of different nonprofits and ensuring that they are able to, for example, just as one minor example, at one time we worked with the senior center. They lost a good deal of stored food from the freezer going out of power. We were able to support them to an extent, and we're working on ways that we can prevent that sort of thing from happening. I just wanted to acknowledge, I hear your comment. There are serious needs in the community when the power goes out, and we are trying to get creative about ways to meet those.
Yeah, okay, so I'm the chairman of the board of Schaefer Ranch Road Association, Southwest Willits. And my concern is primarily prevention of wildfire on our road. We have quite a number of dead and dying trees. I would estimate 100 to 200 large snags that pose an extreme fire danger. And as we all know, prevention is cheaper than treatment. So the best way to deal with this is to prevent wildfire from rapidly spreading through these snags, which pose an extreme danger to not just Schaefer Ranch Road, but I'm sure large swaths of the county. So my question is there any funding that would help with at least taking down these trees so they're not standing and thereby reducing fire risk? This is a large scale issue, and it's going to take a great deal of funding, presumably from a source like the state or the federal government. Is there any information available from this group as to where this funding could come from and how to access it?
Chief Gonzalez or Sheriff Kendall, but there's these healthy forest grants that just came out from the state. And so I know that some of the Firewise councils are looking at that. And I wonder if Chief Gonzalez or Sheriff Kendall have anything to add to that.
Well, currently with the Office of Emergency Services, our OES coordinator, Brent Blazer, has been looking at a lot of these different things. And right now we're beginning to see funding pop up because of the terrible events that we've had happen. And so we're going to stay on top of those and continue to look for any funding opportunities. And hopefully, you know, as we progress into this year and move further towards our goals, even more funding is going to come into play. Brent can probably talk a little bit more about that. He's the one who's on top of it, but I know that Chief Gonzalez has also got a shoulder into looking at a lot of that, especially in our areas. You know, Mendocino County has a lot of timber, has a lot of natural resources that we've got to continue to cultivate in the right direction. We don't want to lose them to fires.
So, Mr. Comer, great question. And there are grants available through the state. If it's on your property, your best advantage would be to start some of the prevention efforts yourself if it's within your own property. There are the grants that we spoke about earlier, and I believe Scott Craddy's on the phone or on the Zoom as well. And if we could get that area established and or working with a fire safe council to receive additional benefits, that's probably the best option we have as a county. That way you're allowed additional insurances and or your insurance won't be cut, things like that. Also, what I'd like to add is as a group, everybody on this phone call, everybody chips in, whether Mr. Comer, whether it's a single property or if it's a single neighborhood or the entire county. It takes each and every single one of us in the specific roles that we work in to make a difference. So although Mendocino County has been struck extremely hard by fire since 2017, we're going in the right direction. And a lot of these avenues are untreaded avenues. So we're kind of figuring them out as we go. What we can tell you is that people are listening, there are funds available, and if we work together, there's nothing we can't stop.
There's another public person. Randy, are you available
yes,
now?
I'm in and I'm listening. And I'm
keep it short,
downtown.
please.
What I'd like to do is talk about site specific. I'm really hesitant to approve anything or just a generalized statement. Snags, my mom and I have always protected the snags because that's where the wildlife is. The skunks, the possums, the squirrels, the deer. That's where some of the bugs are to feed the birds. It's if you say you're going to cut 100 or 200 snags, to me that raises a red flag because sometimes the solution that you are proposing of cutting all these trees will create a wind pattern transformation or change that makes the wind go through at 50 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour where 5 or 10 or 15, a lower, if the tree's canopy is up there, it slows the wind down. I lived in Laytonville for many years, and the Native American people up there taught me that very often the roads, are where the winds blow the fastest, and the streams, where you can get 50 and 60 and 70 mile an hour winds along the roads and the stream banks, but because there's no trees. And so the more you cut the trees, the greater the wind speed is going to be. And so there's an interrelationship between, the forest as a looking at it holistically. You can't just think that you can go around and cut all the snags without having an impact. And I know that where I live down here, there's about 20 trees on the land that I have, and I want to know what's the interrelationship between the community participating in what is going to be done. It's like if you want to lovingly caretake and look at the elm and the bay laurel and the trees that are there, the madrone, and the interrelationship, the deer paths, that's one thing. But if you just come and say, oh, we're going to widen the road 10 feet, or we're going to cut down all the snags, that's a problem for me. I think that it's really critically important that we have neighborhood.
Randy?
Yeah, how do we get neighborhood?
Yeah, how do we get? Very good. I think that we have a great resource here. We have the Sherwood Firewise Council, we have the Pine Mountain, we have this Southwest Willits, Ridgewood. Is that what it's called? Firewise Council that's forming, Eric? And Scott Craddy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's called the Ridgewood Firewise Council. Okay.
Correct.
And Scott Craddy, overseeing the whole Mendocino County. So that's how people can get involved at the local level. I think that's the best use of people's energy.
Well, it's like if people come to the property in front of my house. I think we need parks, we need habitats, we need, conscious mindfulness of looking at what we have, because much of it will not ever come back again. Much of these forests, you think of where we were even 20 years ago and where we are today. And we're literally watching the desert making of California. If they keep logging and if they keep cutting, there's much more than just cutting the trees. And I'd like to see be mapping and monitoring, the medicine plants, involving the Sherwood tribe, involving the people that live in the neighborhood, having workshops, such as this Zoom meeting is a good thing. Before anybody comes in and starts logging, that people have a participatory democracy. That's all.
All right. Thank you for those comments.
I do think both PG&E and CAL FIRE are, I hope, hearing that kind of comment and not, I remember when they started clearing the sides on Sherwood Road, a lot of people were aghast that they were clearing so much. After, the fire danger that we've seen in other places and here with the Oak Fire, you start to take a little bit more of a balanced view that we have to make sure that we are protecting our human communities. Some of them shouldn't have probably been there, but they're there, and there's thousands and thousands of people whose lives are at stake. So I think it's very important for PG&E and CAL FIRE and anyone else who's clearing vegetation for safety purposes to also not overdo it and to protect the natural resources. And I think that's Randy's point. And hearing from the public site by site, if possible, is really great. I didn't see anyone else new wanting to
Brian
comment.
Perry Taylor.
Oh, but okay, good. And then
Thank
after that, maybe John Almeida wants another bite.
I just want to add to that discussion that when we've had roadside work done through the Mendocino County Fire Safe Council, there have been both botanists and biologists on site prior to the project to monitor those kinds of things, protecting plant and animal species prior to the work being done.
This is Eric with PG&E's Vegetation Management Department. I wanted to chime in too. Is all of our work and our enhanced vegetation management, especially with the more extensive scope that particular program holds, all of the work is going through environmental review before any work is done. We strategically map out the areas of focus for the year. That all goes through our internal environmental process. And then after the trees are identified, it goes through our environmental review process again. It's looking at our state and national databases for environmentally sensitive species. We have controls in place to prevent, incidental take, as well as, staff biologists to provide us guidance in situations where it's needed as well. So it's also our programs are on a site-specific basis or property-specific basis. We're happy to have conversations with each property owner independently, as well as participate in a community setting where we can help provide feedback as well to give a little bit more information about how and why we're making decisions and as it relates to our public safety and reducing fire risk around our facilities.
Yeah, same thing for us, Madge. I know you mentioned for us in PG&E, before there's any clearance on the CAL FIRE side, you could even check with Supervisor Haschak. It takes us anywhere up to 18 months before we could start any of the ground clearing because of the CEQA, the environmental reviews, everything that we do. Everything that we do is well thought out, well vetted through all California Environmental Qualities Act and any ARC sites, things like that.
And I'd just like to add, Chief Gonzalez, is that work that we got done on the Furco Road the year before last was because the governor declared it one of the highest priority places in the country or in the state. And so that's why we were that work was expedited and CAL FIRE was able to get in there and do it.
Yes, sir. That was one of the governor's 35 top projects throughout the state of California, which gave us quite a bit of boost, and we're able to accomplish some of the review policies a little bit quicker under the governor's belt. But that really paid off during the Oak Fire that was heavily used.
Speaking of that, one of the other earlier comments on the chat was wondering about a tree down on the Willits Creek access route. And they just wondered who was responsible for clearing that.
We'll have to talk with Brook Trails because they have that sewer easement right now. And Keith Rutledge and Sherwood Firewise are certainly working on that. And so that we'll talk with Brook Trails.
Okay.
Because they've got to be accessing that.
Okay, so John Almeida wanted a follow-up, a short follow-up.
Yeah, so I want to make another comment. When Ms. Talbot talked about that the power station wasn't suitable and during that PSPS, that is in tier 1. And even though tier 2 and tier 3 is all around it, that's in tier 1, and that's the best place to have portable generation. And the wind speed that day was about 6 miles an hour because I'm monitoring these things. And that's probably why they didn't have the PSPS. But within 2 hours, they could have never had generation here anyways, because it wasn't here. You have to physically move those plants here, and that's why they need to be here all the time. And it's going to take more than one. It's going to take 2 or 3, maybe 4 of them. Fort Bragg's got 12 of them. But it's doable, and this is the emergency center, Willits, for the whole area of the 3rd district. That's why it's so important to get this going and not have these situations. I was here in a 64 flood. We didn't have the power out as long as we did. There are those PSPSs that lasted over a week. Thank you.
Thank you, John. If there aren't any other questions, we will go. Madge, you wanted to wrap it up, but I just wanted to thank everyone on the call today, on the Zoom meeting, for all your participation and all the effort that you are doing, to help us improve our response to these disasters and to make safer communities. And like I appreciate the Sherwood Firewise's motto of, when we're making safer communities, we're making stronger communities and the bonds between the people too. And that's certainly an important part of making safer communities. So, and Madge, we want to thank you for putting this, having Well sponsor this event. And thank you for all the logistical work you did for it.
Well, I would like to really thank you, John, and all of the resource people and people on the ground dealing with the aftermath of the winter storms and dealing with looking ahead to what other emergencies are undoubtedly going to befall us. And I really thank all of you for your work and for giving this opportunity to inform the public about what is out there and what you're doing. And as I said before, we are going to be recording this. We have recorded it, and it should be a Vimeo available. And I'm going to, by the way, I'm going to put up our list of contact information. And so we will have the Vimeo available. People who didn't make it to this meeting can watch that, and people might even want to watch it a second time. There was a lot of very important information And this slide that's up on the screen share just shows some of the websites and contact people that you can go to. I wanted to just say on behalf of Willits Economic Localization, we've been in existence for I think 15 or 16 years now, and we've been emergency preparedness has been one of our themes. Local food, making sure our water and energy supplies are as environmentally appropriate and sustainable as possible. We've had farm tours, we've had energy conservation hands-on tours. We have guest speakers, we have forums like this, either online or in person when we can do that. So, I think is an important resource to maintain in our community. And the only way we exist is through our memberships. So if you want to join and donate to please go to that website, 95490.org, join, donate. The rest of the website, I'm afraid, we need to update it. And if you have any questions, or if you want me to email you when I have the Vimeo available, you can give me a call, 459-1493, or you can email me personally, mstrong@willitsonline.com. I could put that up here too. There's a lot of resources available here.
Let me go through and see if there's any closing comments from any of our presenters.
At the end of that, after the closing comments, I'll put this slide back up there again. So if anybody wants to take a screenshot of it or whatever.
So Sheriff Kendall.
Just wanted to thank you for having me on today, and thank Mayor Strong and Supervisor Haschak, Chief Gonzalez, Chief Lizarraga. I mean, all of us, we work together on a pretty constant basis, but having everybody on to listen to what's being said, and understanding that there's these resources out there, and that empowerment through education is going to serve us the best. Many hands make for light work, and nobody takes care of our friends and our families better than what we do. And so as long as we can continue to get the information out and we get people more ready and resilient, we're going to be way ahead for this coming fire season. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sheriff Kendall. Sheriff Kendall does not rest. He is constantly on the go. So we really appreciate it. Brent Blazer from the Office of Emergency Services.
Thank you, sir. I really don't have anything to add. If anybody has any questions or concerns or anything they need help with, please feel free to reach out to the contact information on the slide there.
Okay, very good. Thank you for being on. Chief Gonzalez from CAL FIRE.
Supervisor Haschak, Mayor Strong, and City Manager Bender, Sheriff Kendall, Chief Lizarraga, everybody, thank you for putting this together. Sheriff Kendall said it the best. If we stand united, we have the best chance on any prevention efforts, and prevention prior to the fire getting there is our best hope. 90% of all fires in the state of California are human caused. A little bit scary. I want to challenge all Mendocino County residents to turn the tables on that. Let's make it zero human caused, and let's give ourselves a chance this summer. Number two, I don't know if everybody on this call has ever heard of Co-op Air Patrol. CAL FIRE is a participatory program in this, and this is a local pilot. We have it's a 501c3 organization. It's a volunteer organization, and we've hired a pilot, and the pilot works with CAL FIRE, our air attack program, and they do patrols throughout the entire county all summer long. It's been going on for several years. I just don't know how many people know about it. I know last year the funding kind of dropped on it because it's all volunteer, it's all donation. But if anybody's interested, please, by all means, we could get a hold of the board president, or if you could get a hold of me, I could pass the information along. But it's Co-op Air Patrol, and these people spend countless hours in the air over Mendocino County reporting fires. And each year they get the first report on 15, 16, 17-ish fires, which is huge. And secondly, in a closing statement for me, if everybody could visit readyforwildfire.org, it has all information on home hardening, VMPs, when to, ready, set, go, when to leave, things like that. Other than that, thank you all very, very much. I appreciate this. This is the first step in that proactive measure in prevention, is to get everybody together for us to be able to work things out pre-fire season. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief Gonzalez. And Chief Gonzalez will be presenting his update at the Board of Supervisors on April 6th at around 10:30 in the morning. So we thank you. Let's see, from PG&E, Allison Talbot and Eric Haggerty.
Thanks, Supervisor Haschak. I'd like to thank you again for including us in this. We really appreciate the partnerships across the board with the folks who are on this call. I'm going to use my last minute to encourage everyone to visit pge.com for information, including resources for those with accessibility, language, financial, or aging needs. Especially, I'd highlight to make sure that everyone has their current contact information registered at our website so we can reach you in the event of a PSPS or other emergency. Thank you again for the partnership. And that's PG&E out.
Willits Police Chief, Lizarraga.
Hi, yeah, I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to participate and thank all the community members and members of community organizations for taking part in this. I would encourage those community members to be a conduit for information, passing on all the resources that have been listed and talked about. It's very important to get that out, as widespread as possible. So I would encourage everybody to kind of pass along that information to their neighbors, co-workers, peers, anybody that they know. If we have any follow-up meetings or anything like that, I would encourage also more participation from, again, from the community to reach out and let people know you can get involved or at least find out information on what you can do to be better prepared. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for being with us this afternoon. And Brian Bender, City Manager.
Very informative session. I appreciate everyone's time on this Sunday afternoon, and I've learned a lot. As noted, my tenure has only begun. A lot of things I like to take back and discuss further with the mayor and the city council, see how we can prepare the community for the next event or the event that follows after that. I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And hopefully, yeah, the goal is to be better prepared for the next event. So Scott Crowdy from Mendocino County Firewise Councils, Fire Safe Councils.
Thanks. Yeah, echo a lot. So everybody who's not a member of their neighborhood fire safe council, go become one. Start the information flowing. PG&E's got a ton of great info on their site, as does CAL FIRE, Ready, Set, Go, and we localize that a lot on our website. So I'd encourage everybody to skip a TV show for the next few nights and check out those channels. We've got a great video series that we just put up that steps you through in priority order how to harden your home. Again, I just thanks to everybody for pulling together a community. A lot of environmental issues came up, all super important. Every little road project is an incredible balance of private property owner rights and issues and community rights and issues and nature's rights and issues. And it takes all of us kind of looking out to bring those things into balance, but to do the best we can to keep everyone safe. So thanks for the effort.
And Scott, people can access those videos at firesafemendocino.org.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, very good. And let's see, Lauren Robertson from Pine Mountain.
I wanted to add to what Chief Gonzalez said about the aerial fire spotting. We have been the recipient of some fire alert cameras, and the website is alertwildfire.org. And a new camera went up on Laughlin Peak, on Big Signal Peak, and on a couple more. I think they're planning to add a little bit north in Laytonville. And the camera on Laughlin Peak, you can see all of Ukiah Valley and all of Willits Valley. Not the Pine Mountain area, however, but we can see the Pine Mountain area from Big Signal Peak, which they call the Eden Valley camera. So if you go on Alert Wildfire and look on the north coast, you can see that big time benefit for our area.
Very good. Thank you, Lauren, for being with us this afternoon. And Keith Rutledge from Sherwood Firewise.
Yeah, again, thanks everybody. It's a real challenge for us all to do what we're doing and then have this recent snowstorm. And I do want to try to pull it back to that focus because it is pretty immediate. And in particular, the issue that I can see that we all have our resources and we all have our individual responsibilities. We need more sharing across. And I'm wondering in particular if we could have some kind of shared website where we could show where planned road work is happening. For example, Sherwood Firewise is getting ready to start working with CAL FIRE on doing some fire clearing along Sherwood Road. PG&E is working along Sherwood Road. The county works along Sherwood Road. It's that kind of thing where we really need a high level of coordination to efficiently use our resources so we don't double up and waste time and do things that aren't productive. So I'd like to make that pitch that we have some kind of way to have a shared website or some kind of shared filing system that we can keep each other apprised of what our actions are and maybe coordinate a little better to better use our resources. Like right now, identifying how much damage there really is out there on the ground, which I think Brent Blazer spoke to earlier, that I don't think we really know yet how much material there is and what kind of fire danger it really is represents for this coming fire season. So how can we actually do a good cruise of all of those areas to get a better picture on that? So anyway, but thanks everybody for all the hard work you do.
Thanks, Keith. Good idea. And I think that's a real something that we need to keep in mind for working together and how do we coordinate all of our efforts in a more constructive way. I think that's what your message is. And Eric Hart from the Ridgewood Fire Council.
Hi, thanks. Just wanted to echo, thank you. The agencies, including the sheriff, CAL FIRE, everybody who's joined to hear what issues we're facing and step up and offer support where they can. I know we've got a lot of down wood out there from the storm, in addition to a lot of still standing fuel that puts us at risk for this coming fire season. I just encourage everybody who's on to reach out to your local fire safe council. We do have plans in the works, as was mentioned earlier, to address some of those. The biggest gap still is the general woodland that is not along roads and private property. That is where we've got a lot of down wood and we don't have any real way to address that. The rest of the items, if it's along your driveway, if it's near your house, if it's on the public or private roads, we're working on that. Reach out to your local fire safe council and we can bring you into the loop and let you know what the plans are to address those. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Eric. We'll go back to Madge.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we did also invite the general manager of Brook Trails, Tamara Anis, and also John Noyers, the chief of the fire department there, and neither of them was able to attend, unfortunately, but I will be sending them the Vimeo because obviously these interactions between all the different groups that play a role has been very, very important. And I think this call was helpful to the participants as well as to the general public to find out who all those players are. So I will reach out to the people that were invited but not able to attend.
We are taking down notes of the comments and action items that we can really act upon. And Madge and I will be working with the Firewise councils and the other agencies from the county and the state to resolve these problems. And hopefully we can act on them before fire season. So,
and I'm going to put the screen back up with those other contact information that's a little bit more generalized. So thank you everybody for being present here and for your ongoing work.
And with that, it's 4:59, so we're finishing on time. So thank you all for your time and really appreciate it. Okay, have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you, everybody.